Coming up on this episode of Latinas, we'll talk about Latino representation in politics, learn how to cultivate our green thumbs, and so much more. Latinas starts now. Welcome to Latinas, the show that's all about nosotras, created by nosotras. I'm Tina Beth Pina. Today, I'm inside the Katrina Flower Studio in Brooklyn, where later on we'll learn how to care for our flowers as spring sets in across the city. But first, this April marks the official 23rd anniversary of Sexual Assault Awareness Month, which calls attention to the fact that sexual violence is widespread and impacts every person in all communities, even children. Unfortunately, in the Latino community, child sexual assault has been grossly underreported. Correspondent Elena Romero sat down with two Latina therapists to talk about the numbers, prevention, intervention, and most importantly, the healing process for Latino families.
Therapy it's evolving. Our community is very against therapy in the sense because we have this stigma that it's for crazy people. You have to be crazy to go to therapy. But as this generation, as things have progressed, we notice children asking for therapy. Mental health is a big deal. I can't tell you in my line of work how many inquiries we get directly from teenagers or young people that are like, I need therapy. I told my mom that I'm looking for therapy.
In the Latino community, therapy is stigmatized and considered a taboo topic. But this thinking undermines a necessary part of healing from a traumatic experience. For children, if the trauma is not addressed, its effects can be carried into adulthood.
It's hard. You know, when a child goes through this and you hear this story, they're looking for someone to be heard, someone to hear them. But they're also looking for sometimes acceptance, to be secure.
Child sexual abuse, or CSA, is a widespread issue. It's estimated that 1 in 9 girls and 1 in 20 boys under the age of 18 experience sexual assault or abuse, according to RAINN, the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network. Latino children have an incidence rate of 1.8 per 1,000 children, a slightly greater risk for sexual abuse than non-Hispanic white children, according to the National Incidence Survey.
I give them the opportunity to speak, hear, meet them where they're at. If I see that it's trauma-related, as a case of sexual assault.
Boricua therapist Eunice Santiago says developing a connection with children through therapy is a key part of the healing process.
I don't ask too many questions, but I allow them to talk about it. And when they're ready, I would tell them, when you're ready to tell me your story, you can tell me in another session. But I want to meet you where you're at.
What should parents be looking for to suspect that there could be something related to sexual assault?
Well, as a parent, you would notice your children actively engaging, enjoying to do certain activities, and then all of a sudden they don't want to. They become distant, their communication, you notice fear factors, and you notice certain behaviors that are like either crying, isolation, or other patterns that you may see within them.
Seeking professional help can be life-changing, and there isn't a one-size-fits-all treatment. Everyone is different and may respond differently to various therapies.
It can take 3 to 6 months to a year or more, depending on the child and the progress. When I see that the child has, good emotional regulations, good coping skills, that is able to function and is able to have good grades, function with peers, in communities where before has isolated themselves, and I see that they're incorporating themselves, that's, for me, progress.
Therapist Jessica Hardiel recommends therapy for both parent and child.
find the resources, get your child in counseling, get yourself in counseling, maybe do some family sessions, because it affects everyone in the family, not just the child that was abused, but also the parent who's dealing with, was it my fault? Did I do something wrong? Also the family as a unit, siblings, right? Now if the mom is giving more attention to this one child that it happened to, now the siblings are like, what's going on? So it's just a family dynamic that I think it's important to just be talked about as a group. And that way everyone knows that it's okay to talk about it.
Hardio says the goal is to be able to improve the child's daily functioning and quality of life.
I think overall the goal is to heal from the trauma and to be able to recall events without feeling like they're unresolved or like you haven't healed from these traumatic experiences. And you can talk about it as a story, and then it's more of like, this happened to me, but I survived it. And I'm okay, I'm thriving in my space today.
I'm Elena Romero for Latinas.
As Latino families grow stronger after suffering through trauma, another way they and their communities can thrive is by throwing their weight behind Latino leaders, like in Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, for example. Ironically, while Latinos are nearly 1/5 of the overall U.S. population, a Pew Research report found that Latinas in particular make up less than 3% of elected officials in Congress, state-level executive, and legislative offices. So Latina representation in politics is what we'll be talking about in today's Caliente Caliente.
Even in New York City, we have never had a Latino mayor. We haven't had a comptroller, we haven't had a public advocate. I truly believe that like in 2025, we will have a citywide Latino, but that person has to run. That person has to decide. And that's been the biggest challenge, is talking to Latinas. And it's like, well, I have childcare issues. I have, I take care of my parents. I work. I do this with my church. And it's just like they're stretched thin. Mm-hmm. And it's just finding that person that has even the capacity to run.
I think it's to that point, having run, it's also the metrics that people use for viability, my favorite word, right? Yes. How are they viable? And oftentimes it's fundraising, right? Mm-hmm. So it comes back down to the dollar, mm-hmm. and folks just don't necessarily want to take the leap to support a Latino because mm-hmm. If we don't get the push, then how can we even try to get into that fight?
But as a woman, as a Latina, did you even think, is this going to be harder for me? Or how am I going to raise money? I mean, did those things, you guys both work on.
It's not that I didn't think it was going to be harder for me. I knew it. I've always known in my entire life, I have to work twice as hard to get half the recognition. I come into a room knowing that people think less of me because I am a woman and I'm a Latina, period. Mm-hmm. But I know that, and I keep it moving. And it is surprising to some, right? And I think that's my strength. And so I think as Latinas, we need to own that. And so I love having that opportunity where I still go into spaces, and when I see Latinas, that's my moment to amplify and uplift. I see you, let's go, let's work together. I'm gonna talk about you. I'm gonna say, hey, I'm gonna introduce you, because that's how we stop this. That's how we keep on moving and growing. It's those little things, it's that networking, it's that building up that we can get through the bigger hurdle.
But Martha, you've run political campaigns for Latina women in New York. What are the biggest obstacles?
It depends. So if that person is a white presenting Latino, it's easier for them to kind of talk to different groups, whether they be white presenting, progressive, and certain other ideologies. If they are a Afro-Latino Ganifuna, it's much more challenging, because then we would need other white Latinos to validate us in the Latino space, because automatically you look at us and you're just like, well, do you speak Spanish? Like, can you dance? Can you cook? Like, we have to validate ourselves because we don't look white presenting Latino. So it's a different thing for us. And then our spaces are Black. So we're with the more, we assimilate more. When the West Indian Day Parade, you'll see us in, socializing in different spaces. We're not, some of us don't even go to those churches, right? Like it just depends on where you feel like is your community. So it's a challenge to even get like they're just starting to come online with Judelka, Tapia, and Karina's, that they look Afro-Latino, but they just came online. So that's also a challenge that's happening outside of just, being a mom. Race, color,
money.
Well, Latinos are not donors, so this is the viability thing, right? So it's just like, we see the numbers, right? Like, we vote, but like, we don't donate. If you're looking at just like campaign finance filings, Latinos don't donate. That's just not a thing. We could cook you up some empanadas and we'll raise you some money that way, but we're not going to donate. We're not gonna like go to church and ask for money. It's not a thing.
But that's interesting, because Latinos in general are very generous with philanthropy, right?
Yes.
With Catholic Church stuff, but I think it goes back to that lack of understanding of the importance of civics, of the elections, and so I think we hurt ourselves, right, by not really understanding how the system works.
April is Earth Month and spring is in the air with lots of beautiful flowers getting ready to bloom. Madalena Levy, the owner of the Katrina Floral Studio, is here to help us nurture our green thumbs.
Let's say you buy your flowers from the supermarket, Trader Joe's, wherever you get your flowers from. You come home, I'm going to show you how to properly cut the flowers. You cut it at an angle like that. And that way there is more of a surface for the flower to drink from. Now, another good trick is to keep track of your water. It always needs to be very clean. So give it a couple of days, then switch the water, and that way your flowers will last longer. Let's say if you have a nice flower arrangement, what you can do is same thing. Every few days, switch water in the sink. If you see one bloom dying, get it out, and that way we'll avoid for the contamination to spread in the water. So orchids are a beautiful option to get something. If you don't want to invest in weekly flowers, you can always buy a beautiful orchid. It's a tropical plant. Keep it away from direct sunlight. And then you're going to just keep in mind that the roots need to be wet, moist. So do not just use a little spray bottle to do it, because this will not get the job done. Do not just do ice cubes, because it will not drip all the way to the bottom. Just make sure that the roots are completely wet, let it be for 8 days or so, and you'll be surprised how long your orchid can give you. So many things to cover on this topic, because there is not just one right way to take care of a plant. It depends on so many environments, like your windows, access to light. So you're not going to get a tropical plant if you don't get direct sun from any direction. Some plants that are super strong is snake plant. This doesn't need even direct sunlight, as long as it gets some access to light. This is super strong. It's forgiving. You can water it every 10 days, every 2 weeks, and it will still be beautiful. Now, if you do more of a tropical plant, yes, it needs more access to direct sunlight, and it needs water more consistently than just a snake plant. Another strong plant to have is a cactus. So basically, they're beautiful, they're strong, they do need access to light, not direct necessarily, but you can water every 2 months, and it's so beautiful. Another thing that I want to recommend with plants is, let's say you buy a plant from the supermarket, wherever you get your plant from. I've seen so many people just putting that plant in a new planter, and that's wrong, because you must take that plant out of the original container and plant it properly. So the right way to do it is you have to get soil, get rid of that original container, and then just let it grow in your own planter. And it's actually super therapeutic to go around your house, watering your plants, taking care of them, see what they give you. Because you just have to be patient, give them the proper care, and they will give you so much in return.
The road to financial aid in college usually begins with a free application for federal student aid, otherwise known as FAFSA. Unfortunately, when the U.S. Department of Education recently rolled out the Better FAFSA application, the already difficult system to navigate became even harder. CUNY student Emily Perez is back with her thoughts about FAFSA and offers some tips on how to make applying for financial aid an even easier process in today's edition of Emily's Opinion.
I want to talk about financial aid because financial aid is like the hardest thing ever. Like me as a student, I was like 17 filling out a financial aid application, and it's extremely difficult to just try to navigate through these applications as a 17-year-old, not knowing how to do taxes, not knowing how to read taxes, and having immigrant parents that also don't understand how to help, how to guide you through this application. Unfortunately, this means that tens of thousands of students every year just do not complete their application because of the fear of potentially messing up the application, or they think that they're going to put their parents in danger if they're immigrants, and it's a very real fear with how society is today. Additionally, for a financial aid application, I know it can be extremely tricky, but there's a lot of resources out there that can also help you. I used YouTube while applying to financial aid, and trust me, there's a lot of financial counselors that are on there, and they really just help you guide through the application itself, and they really break it down so that it's a little bit more simple to grasp. Other resources that can really help you guide through the application process is collegevine.com. It's absolutely great. It's free. There you can get access to workshops, you can get access to applications. You can also do something where you can get other people to check your essays, and then you can check other people's essays for inspiration as well, which is great. Another website is niche.com. They basically do college rankings, and they also have a lot of information and blogs that can help you. There's another website that I like to mention that's called ustrive.com, and basically you can get a free mentor there. They'll guide you through the application process, they'll help you with your essays, and you can pick from different professionals there to fit whatever major you're going for, whatever career you're going for, and it's a great opportunity for networking. And remember, if you really have that drive in you, then you'll get anywhere. Like CUNY says, you can start here and go anywhere.
Now you're about to meet a proud Latina who shows us it's never too late to succeed. According to the National Center for Education Statistics, illiteracy affects 18% of U.S. adults, which is approximately 57.4 million people who come from low-income communities. Ecuadorian immigrant Maria Tenesaca was one of those people until she challenged herself and learned how to read and write at 65. That's why Maria is today's Inspiración Latina.
Yo aprendí a leer y escribir a los 65 años.
Que estamos tratando de aprender a leer y escribir porque no sabemos.
Mi nombre es María Tenesaca, soy de Ecuador. Yo fui regalada de la edad de 1 año. Nunca fui a la escuela, no tuve ninguna clase de educación. Me casé, tuve mis 7 hijos y fui maltratada. Mi hermano me ayudó a sacar de mi país, salí escondida. Llegué aquí el 18 de septiembre del 95. Que tengo 28, 29 años en este país. Yo no sabía cómo caminar en el tren, en los buses. Solo yo pedía de favor que me anoten en un papel y a la gente le enseñaba que me ayuden a llegar a esa dirección. Aprender, adquirir el conocimiento de algo. Aprendí a coser. Uno tiene que medir acá, y yo no sabía escribir. Entonces yo lloraba mucho, decía, Dios mío, ¿qué hago? ¿Cómo hago? Pero tengo que sacar para mantener a mis hijos. Entonces yo, ¿qué hacía? Medía en mis dedos, medía en mis uñas, medía en mi mano, con mi cuerpo iba midiendo. Y llegué a trabajar en alta costura, una ropa que era muy cara, que un vestido costaba $1,500. Y nadie sabía que yo no sabía leer ni escribir, porque me daba vergüenza. Creo que ni mis hijos sabían que yo no sabía leer ni escribir. Yo les llevaba a la escuela y yo quería que ellos estudien, pero yo no podía ayudarles con las tareas. Y entonces hasta que un buen día, la nuera mía es colombiana y me dice, suegra, dice, llegó, dice, un aviso que están alfabetizando a las personas que no saben leer y escribir. Y llamo yo misma llamé y me contestó el profesor. Digo, me gustaría tratar a ver si puedo, porque le digo, con tantas humillaciones que yo viví en la vida, yo dije que no voy a poder. Ahí fue que empecé, pero tenía miedo. Hubo una persona que me dijo, ¿para qué va? Usted ya está vieja, no va a aprender nada. Dije, pues no, yo voy a ir y voy a poner empeño y voy a aprender.
¿Qué verbo quiere conjugar?
Cocina.
Oh, cocinar, ok.
Yo cocino.
Y el profesor ha sido para mí un ángel. Él me enseñó a escribir cogiéndome de la mano. Y habíamos muchos. El primer día que llegué yo dice, vamos a hacer las 5 vocales. Me sentía mal, tenía mucha vergüenza, como decimos nosotros los ecuatorianos. Yo hasta sudaba de los nervios. Y entonces así fui empezando a conocer las 5 vocales. Hasta que ya hice un párrafo, ya conté un párrafo, la historia mía. Escuela. El día más feliz fue el día que me gradué y me dieron mi diploma. Yo diría a las personas que nunca es tarde. A los 65 aprendí a leer, y el cual me siento muy orgullosa. Me siento como que yo estoy arriba. Y por eso digo a mis compañeros, sí se puede.
What do you do if you're traveling by yourself and want to explore at night? Travel expert Jen Ruiz is here with a few tips to help you do just that.
I think so many people think that travel is expensive or that they can't afford to travel, and it's mainly the flight that is cost prohibitive for them. So I think the first thing you need to do is realize that you can get anywhere in the world using 3 really quick strategies. Number 1, flight alerts. They let you know when there's a deal. So you can get an email inbox saying there's a $50 flight to the Aruba, on this weekend, and you can hop on that. So many people don't realize how cheap you can find flights for. And I myself personally, I wrote my first book about finding cheap flights, and I had found the $38 flight to New Zealand, the $16 flight to South Ecuador, the $22 round trip flight Miami to San Francisco. So because of that, I could travel. The second tip is to sign up for points and miles. So if you have an airline credit card or any kind of travel credit card, you can use your existing spending to capitalize that to actually get free flights. That's how I booked a $38 flight to New Zealand, using points and miles from, spending that I already had with bills and rent and things of the sort. And then my third tip would be to fly with budget airlines. So many budget airline now, especially around the US, offering these flights for discounted prices. So you can reach destinations like the Caribbean, like South America, for much more affordable than you could have years ago.
What happens when a 2nd grade bilingual education teacher discovers her passion for astronomy? Well, she decides to become an astrophysicist. That's why Rosario Cecilio Flores Eli is today's Latina on the Rise.
Rosario Cecilio Flores Eli is getting a master's degree in astrophysics.
K-stars are cooler than the sun, but warmer, obviously, than the M-dwarfs.
Rosario was the first in her family to graduate from high school and then the first to graduate from college at Lehman in the Bronx, and she proudly became a 2nd grade bilingual education teacher.
I want my students to see that their teacher looks like them and comes from similar backgrounds.
So how does one go from being a 2nd grade teacher to being an astrophysics master's student at the City University of New York?
Originally it started with a group of friends. The Cosmos show came out with Neil deGrasse Tyson. And so every Sunday we were have debates about whatever topic Dr. Tyson would talk about that weekend. Then we venture out to the Custer Observatory out in Long Island. And there I I was pretty amazed. I liked the clear night sky. I saw Jupiter and Saturn and its moons from the telescope for the first time, and I was just blown away by it.
She'll always remember her chance to attend adult space camp. She was so interested in astronomy that her husband, Juan Eli, a pilot, suggested she go back to school. She feared she wasn't good at math, but kept at it, taking classes at night. 9 years after her first degree, she earned another in physics. Meanwhile, the City University of New York was setting up an astrophysics master's program for people who don't yet have the research experience to go for a PhD. Professor Jillian Bellaveri is the director.
The goal of a bridge program is to take students who have a lot of potential, but for some reason we're lacking some resources or some opportunities that they're not competitive for a PhD program at this time, and give them those opportunities.
Rosario's sister, Doris, saw a flyer about it.
She texted me the flyer and she told me, Rosario, you need to apply. I just got like goosebumps once I saw the flyer. I was like, okay, maybe this is my chance.
When Rosario got word she was accepted, she was over the moon.
I have to say, it feels like a dream.
The master's students take difficult classes and do research. They have mentors to help them stay on track. It's not easy.
This semester, they are taking computational methods, which is a lot of coding that relates to physics. Some of them are doing research on simulations of galaxy formation. Some of them are doing research on low-mass stars or stars with planets around them.
What is it about Rosario that you think will make her a great astrophysicist?
Rosario has a first career as a second-grade teacher, running after all those kids all day. Like, I don't know how she had the energy to then do a bunch of really hard physics at night. I think Rosario has shown that she has the tenacity and drive to really be successful, even when the odds are stacked against her.
Rosario's parents, who worked hard and never got to go beyond middle school, are very proud of her. What is her goal?
Eventually, I would love to work at NASA or at an institution like the Museum of Natural History.
Your aim is not to go to space?
I would love to go to space. If the opportunity comes, yes.
So don't be surprised if it happens someday. I'm Donna Hanover for Latinas.
And that's our show for today. For more information on what you just saw, check out our website at tv.cuny.edu and follow our social media profiles because we love sharing our Latino stories with you. And please make sure you tune in next month where we'll learn about the AF Foundation, an organization with Latina female athletes in mind, talk mental health, and so much more. Uepa! Hasta la próxima. Bye-bye.